Hello. So we have been studying about Vedic period, and we have almost completed most of the things in Vedic period, and we will go through some few important points in Vedic period. Purohita and Senani were two important government officials during later Vedic period in the court of the Vedic king or the Raja. Purohita was the court priest and Senani was the commander of the army. There was no tax collection during early Vedic period, but tax collection started during later Vedic period, and there was a government officer with whom the tax was deposited, and that officer was called as Sangritri. During later Vedic period, most of the things got changed in the society, and with that there were new practices coming into existence, like the rule of primogeniture came into existence. The rule of primogeniture came into existence. The rule of primogeniture. It means if there is a king, he has so many children, his first son will be the next king. The first male child will be the next king. That rule was the rule of the primogeniture, first genitor child. The rule of primogeniture came into existence during later Vedic period. Okay, then there came into existence the concept of Gotra. Gotra means a group of people who had descended from a common ancestor. From a common ancestor, he has some children. Then these people, they had their children. These people will be brothers and sisters. They will be brothers and sisters, and then there will be their children, and these people will be the people in this generation. The people in this family will be cousins. So like that, there will be generations and generations descending from a common ancestor, and such a big family with a lot of cousins and relatives are known as Gotra. And in this period, the concept of Gotra exogamy came into practice. The concept of Gotra exogamy came into practice. You see, the descendants of a common ancestor came to be known as Gotra, meaning the members of a big family. And the members of that family are considered to be cousins or like siblings. They are treated, and they will not marry between each other. Instead, a person from one Gotra will marry a person from another Gotra. There were Gotra exogamy. Exo means outside, gamy means to join or marriage. So, people from a single Gotra never practiced marrying each other or never practiced marriages. Hence, what they did was they married outside their Gotra, that is Gotra exogamy. So, Gotra exogamy, the concept of Gotra came into existence in later Vedic period. During the Vedic period, there were 4 kinds of Vedic texts written: the Vedas, the Brahmanas, the Aranyakas, and the Upanishads. The Vedas had mentioned about so many rituals, practices, and sacrifices, chants to reach God. They mentioned how a person should live, what all things a god will do, and it is supposed that the Vedas were written by the gods, or either written by the gods, or gods will be telling it to humans, and great sages will be writing them down, or great sages themselves has written them down. It consists of so many rituals, religious practices, prayers, and sacrifices. Then what all things you should be giving to a Brahmanical priest who is doing the prayers for you, how much fees you should give, all those things will be mentioned in Vedas. Then the Vedas were effectively a religious book. It's completely of spiritual things, and it is written in Sanskrit. The Brahmanas are a relativistic interpretation of the Vedas. It mentioned all the things in Vedas in a more simple manner, and that too in a manner that is more understandable by the common man in their language. If Vedas are in poetic form, in the form of poetry, then this will be in the form of prose. In sentences, the Brahmanas will be written. Effectively, the content will be the same. It's of a religious and spiritual nature. These texts were written in the ancient period. Then, meaning these texts were written in the early period of Vedic period. And then, as we travel through the Vedic period, the other texts came into existence. The thought process of the people began to change. They started to think in a more philosophical way rather than spiritual way. They began to think more on logical way and say that such things are not correct, such things are not good. Likewise. And when we reach towards the end of the Vedic period, people started to believe in philosophical things. They started to criticize most of the things in practice in the society. They will say such things told in the Vedas and such things practiced by you is not correct. They will say polytheism, belief in so many gods, belief in many gods is not correct. There is only one power and there is only a single god. And they started mentioning about concept of monotheism. They criticized polytheism. Then they were starting to ask questions like what is the idea of life, what is the aim of life. Such philosophical thoughts came into the being of people's mind. And Aranyakas were texts written by sages who were living in forest. Aranyaka means forest. So Aranyakas were written by sages who were living in forest, and the content of the Aranyakas were a transition between spiritual things and a philosophical things. It contained matter that is a little bit about spiritual content, and it also had a little bit of philosophical content. So Aranyakas marks a transition between spiritual and philosophical concepts. Okay. So we can see the society had become worst in many ways. One way was that religion became so complicated. Religion had unnecessary rituals. Religion had bad practices like blood and animal sacrifices. All these were not good. And religion was so complicated that the common man cannot easily pray or do prayers or practice their rituals. It became very complicated because the Brahmanas had made it in such a way that only the Brahmanas can conduct the prayers. And hence the people became so much frustrated with it. They cannot get peace of mind through prayers. Then there was caste system. The caste system became so rigid, it affected almost everyone. The four castes were the Kshatriyas, the Brahmanas, the Vaishyas and the Shudras. The Kshatriyas, the Brahmanas, the Vaishyas and the Shudras. The Kshatriyas and the Brahmanas, they always had a fight with each other to say who is the topmost caste or who is having an upper hand. The Kshatriyas or the kings belong to the Kshatriya class will say the Brahmanas are below them. They will say that we can decide who should be the priest for them. They can easily change the priest. But the Brahmanas always said that we are the people who help the king to become the king. We do sacrifices, we do prayers and puja so that the king remain victorious in all battles. The king's cultivation will be good if and only if the Brahmanas does prayers. The king will get only good kids if and only if the Brahmanas does prayer. And if the king is going and defeating a country, then according to Rigveda, the king has to give so much property in the north, a particular amount of property in the south, a particular amount in the east, a particular amount in the west, and finally there will be a little bit of land left for the king on which only he can stand with his 2 feet. Such a small land will be remaining with the king if he is giving the Brahmanical priest the land according to the Vedas. That was how they had declared or how they had demanded their fees for the pujas they are doing. The king is getting a country from the war, then the king has to give them so much land, which is not practically applicable or practically possible. The king will just give them some slave women or some cattle as fee. So both these castes were a headache for each other. Then there were the Vaishyas. The Vaishyas were the people who did all the productive work. They were the people who did trade, they were the people who did agriculture, etc. And they were the people who were paying the tax. But according to the Vedas, the Kshatriyas and the Brahmanas can overpower the Vaishyas. They can give the Vaishyas a slap if they want. That's okay in the society. And then there were the Shudras who were kept like slaves, who were not given any importance, who were mistreated always. So every group in the society, every caste in the society were facing so much problem, and the existing structure of the society was not pleasing to anyone. And hence, some people brought in new religions, and those religions were Buddhism and Jainism. Hence, in order to overcome the problems of the Vedic religion and the Vedic society, new religions like the Buddhism and Jainism came into existence around the end of the Vedic period, which is 600 BC. So, at the end of the 600 BC or the end of the Vedic period, new religions came into existence in order to have solutions for the practical problems in the society at that time. Okay. So around 600 BC, there were three important things. The first thing was the introduction of new religions like Buddhism and Jainism. This portion we will be covering in our art and culture section. The art and culture of ancient history will be covered separately. That time we will see Buddhism and Jainism. The next important event during 600 BC is the existence of Mahajanapadas. During the later Vedic period, new kingdoms came into existence, the Janapadas. Why did they come into existence? They came into existence because land got important. The concept of land and the concept of land boundaries and boundary expansions came into practice. You have to remember one thing, during the early Vedic period, the wars were fought for cattle, and those cattle wars were known as Gavishti in the Rig Veda. During early Vedic period, the battles were for cattle, and those cattle wars were called as Gavishti. Cattle wars were called as Gavishti in the Rig Veda. And during later Vedic period, the wars were fought for land expansion. The wars were fought for land expansion. Okay. And during later Vedic period, the concept of land and kingdoms came into existence, and during later Vedic period, ruling were over land known as Janapadas. By 600 BC, out of the Janapadas or the small kingdoms in India, 16 became very important. 16 out of them became important, and those 16 Janapadas came to be known as Mahajanapadas because they were more powerful, they were bigger in size and prominent at that time. They were known as Mahajanapadas. Mahajanapadas. How many were there? 16. The common man's language at that period was the Pali and Prakrit. Whereas the priest or Brahmanical caste who got formal education in Sanskrit had the language Sanskrit as their official language. The educated people, meaning the people who got education in the Vedas, they also learned the language Sanskrit. Whereas the common man used the languages like Pali and Prakrit. Okay. So you have to keep that in mind. Whenever someone wants to communicate with the common man, they should use the language of Pali and Prakrit. And the language of Sanskrit were for the learned Brahmins who had learned the Vedic text and the Vedic religion. Okay, so there were 16 Mahajanapadas. And our question is, how do we know about the Mahajanapadas? How do we know that there were 16 Mahajanapadas? During 600 BC, Buddhism came into existence. Then the disciples of Buddhism started writing Buddhist texts, books on Buddhism. And the Buddhist text, Angutta Nikaya, the Buddhist text, Angutta Nikaya mentions about the 16 The Buddhist text named Angutta Nikaya mentions about 16 Mahajanapadas at the period of 600 BC. Around 600 BC, 16 Mahajanapadas were in existence is what this text has told. And this text, all the Buddhist texts were written in the common man's language, either Pali or Prakrit. And this Anguta Nikaya had called the 16 Mahajanapadas, or it had mentioned the 16 Mahajanapadas as Shodasha Mahajanapada. In the common language, 16 is Shodasha. Shodasha Mahajanapadas. The Anguta Nikaya talks about Shodasha Mahajanapadas, or the 16 Mahajanapadas. Okay. From there we got many information about the Mahajanapadas, the names of the Mahajanapadas, the capital of the Mahajanapadas, and from historical account we know the current location of these Mahajanapadas. And from the informations about Mahajanapadas, we came to know some things about the Indian polity at that time. Indian polity means the form of government existed at a place. So, the polity at that time included kingdoms that were either monarchies or that were either republics. There were two kinds of kingdoms. The Mahajanapadas had two types of kingdoms, or at the period of 600 BC, there were two types of kingdoms existed in India. One was monarchy and the second was republic. So there were two kinds of kingdoms, the monarchies and the republics. What are monarchy? Monarchy is a form of government where a single person, either a king or a queen, does the ruling. All their decisions are brought into practice, or they decide how the ruling should be, what all things should be given to the people, what all things the people should do. All the rules and law and order will be controlled by a single person. That is a monarchy. And as we know, there were kings. The kings made it hereditary that if I am king, my child will be the king, and the child of my child will be the next king. Like that it will be going. But a republic is a kind of kingdom where there are more than one person to do the ruling. At least a group of people will be making the doing the rule, or a group of society, a collection of groups will be doing the rule. Either a group of people, more than 1, 2, 3, 4 people will be doing the rule, or there will be a group of people, like there will be different groups, they conjointly do the ruling. It means that the people who are there will be selected or elected from some other way, so that there will be a little bit of democracy there. Meaning all decisions should be taken, or all decisions come into being after there is a consensus at least between the majority of the people. So a single person cannot decide anything. Everyone has to accept something, or at least a majority number of people should accept something so that it can be implemented. So some kind of democracy will be available there in republics. Okay, the ruling will be done by more than one person. There will be a collection of people to do the ruling on the basis of consensus. So both these kinds of kingdoms were present in the Mahajanapadas is what we have come to know from the research work that we have done on them. Okay, we have a table there to mention about Mahajanapadas. We have the Mahajanapada, the capital, and the present location of the Mahajanapada. There are, out of the 16 Mahajanapadas, most of them are actually monarchies, and a few are only republic. Okay. The first Mahajanapada is Cambodia, and its capital is Hatay, and its present location is in Afghanistan. The second Mahajanapada is Gandhara, and its capital is Takshila, and its present location is in Pakistan, Rawalpindi in Pakistan. These are the only two Mahajanapadas outside present India. Okay, and the third Mahajanapada is the Kurus. We have already learned about the Kurus. They were formed from the Barida clan and the Kurus. When they went into a matrimonial alliance, the Kuru clan came into existence. And we had heard the name of Kuru Vamsham in Mahabharata. And in Mahabharata, we came to know that the Pandavas and the Kauravas came from the Kuru clan. and their capital was the Hastinapur and the Indraprastha. The same capital is there for the Kurus. The same names are here. Okay, so the capital of Kurus are the Hastinapur or Indraprastha. And where exactly is the location? You can take a map and see near Delhi, near UP and Meerut in UP, we can see a place called marked as Indraprastha. And the location is there only, Meerut in UP and the southeast Haryana. The present location is Meerut UP and southeast Haryana. Meerut UP and southeast Haryana. Okay. Then there is Panjalas. We have already mentioned the name of Panjalas who goes into matrimonial alliance with the Kurus. The capital of the Panjalas is Kampilia. Capital of Panjala is Kampilia. And their location is Western UP. See, we have covered the period of Vedic period, and now onwards the most of the important things are happening around the UP Bihar region. Many important things are happening around the UP Bihar region in the northern plains. Okay. Panjala's present location is Western UP. And the next one is Kosala. Kosala, its capital is Shravasti. The capital of Kosala is Shravasti and its present location is in Ayodhya. You have heard about Ayodhya, right? About Rama temple. Ayodhya is also in UP. Ayodhya is in UP. And the next Mahajanapada is Malla. Malla has two capitals, Kushinagar and Pava, or sometimes also known as Pavapuri. Kushinagar and Pava. Because there are two sets of Mallas. The Malla was spread over the region of UP and Bihar. In our map, UP is like this, Bihar is like this. Okay. And on this portion, Malla was in existence. And it spread over UP, portions of UP and portions of Bihar. Actually, it was a kind of having two parts. There were the Mallas of Kushinagar, meaning this portion, the capital was Kushinagar. In this portion, the capital was Pava. There were two sets of Mallas, the Mallas of Kushinagar and the Mallas of Pava. Okay. The importance of Malla is that, the first importance is that Malla is a republic. Malla was a republic. Malla was a republic. And the second important thing is, the founder of Buddhism was Gautama Buddha. And the founder of Jainism is Mahavira. And the founder of Jainism was Mahavira. Buddha died at Kushinagar and Mahavira died at Pava. There is this important point that the founders of Buddhism, Buddha died in Kushinagar and the founder of Jainism, Mahavira, died in Pava. And the next Mahajanapada is Vaji or Vriji. It is the same name, it is the name of the same Mahajanapada, Vaji or Vriji. It is also a republic and the capital is Vaishali, and the Vaishali is actually spreading over UP, Bihar and Nepal. UP, Bihar, Nepal region, it spreads, Vaishali. The capital is Vaishali and the Mahajanapada is Vaji or Vriji. It is spreading over UP, Bihar and Nepal. Okay, then there is Matsya. Matsya. That Mahajanapada had Viratnagar as capital. Viratnagar as capital and it is near Jaipur. It is near Jaipur. It is the only Mahajanapada in the present state of Rajasthan. It is the only Mahajanapada near Rajasthan or in Rajasthan. It is Matsya with capital Viratnagar. And the next one is Surasena. And the next one is Surasena and the capital is Madura. There is another place called Madurai. Madurai is in Tamil Nadu and Madura is in UP. Okay, so the present location is Madura in UP. Surasena capital is Madura and the present location is Madura in UP. And the present location is Madura in UP. Okay, and the next Mahajanapada is Vatsa. Next Mahajanapada is Vatsa and the capital of Vatsa is Kausambi. And the capital of Vatsa is Kausambi. Kausambi is located in modern Allahabad. Modern Allahabad in UP. Modern Allahabad in UP. Allahabad is the place where The Ganga and Yamuna joins. Allahabad is the place where the Ganga and Yamuna joins. Next one is Kasi. We have heard as Kashi. Kashi, the capital is also Kasi. Where is Kasi or Kashi? Some people say that we are going to Kashi for becoming sages. Kasi is in Benares or Varanasi in UP. Benares or Varanasi in UP. Kasi is in Benares or Varanasi in UP. And the next Mahajanapada is Magadha. And the next Mahajanapada is Magadha. Magadha had two capitals. The early capital, the initial capital of Magadha was Rajgarh, or it is sometimes also known as Rajagraha. Rajagraha. That was the earlier capital of Magadha. Later, Magadha had a new capital known as Pataliputra. Pataliputra. So Magadha had two capitals. The early capital was Rajgarh or Rajagraha, and the later capital was Pataliputra. And the present location of Magadha is in Bengal, Bihar region exactly, and the present location can be marked to Gaya district in Patna, Bihar. Gaya district in Patna, Bihar. Gaya in Patna. That is where the capital of Magadha is. And the next Mahajanapada is Anga. Next Mahajanapada is Anga, and the capital is Chamba. The capital of Anga is Chamba, and the present location is Mungar and Bhagalpur district in Orissa. And the present location is Mungar and Bhagalpur districts. The present location is Mungar and Bhagalpur districts in Orissa. Next is Avanti. The capital of Avanti is Ujjain, or it is also known as Mahishmati. It was the kingdom of Bahubali, right? No, only this name is similar to that movie. Okay. So the Mahajanapada is Avanti and the capital is Ujjain or Mahishmati. And the present location is Malwa Nimar region. The Malwa region and the Nimar region. Malwa and Nimar region in Madhya Pradesh. The Malwa and Nimar region in Madhya Pradesh. And the next Mahajanapada is Chedi. And the next Mahajanapada is Chedi, and the capital is Sotivadi or Banda. The capital is Sotivadi or Banda, and the present location is Bundelkhand region, the region of the Bundelkhand plateau, and the present location is Bundelkhand region. And the next one is Asmaga, and the last Mahajanapada is Asmaga, and the last Mahajanapada is Asmaga. It is the southernmost Mahajanapada. It is the southernmost Mahajanapada. Asmaga is the southernmost Mahajanapada. And the capital is Python or Pradeshtan. And the capital is Python or Pradeshtan. It is near Godavari in Maharashtra. It is near Godavari in Maharashtra. Okay. Out of these Mahajanapadas, 4 became prominent. The Vatsa, the Avanti, the Kosala and Magadha. In the history or the course of events, all the 3 Mahajanapadas somehow becomes a part of Magadha. Either through warfare or through matrimony, they later becomes part of Magadha, and Magadha becomes a one big or the one strong Mahajanapada out of the 4. Okay. Vatsa, the capital was Kausambi. Capital of Vatsa was Kausambi, which is near modern Allahabad. The main ruler of Vatsa was Udayana. The main ruler of Vatsa was Udayana. The main ruler of Avanti was Pradyodha. The main ruler of Avanti was Pradyodha. Pradyodha fell in love with the daughter of Udayana. Pradyodha fell in love with the daughter of Udayana. Her name was Vasavadatta. They wanted to marry and they married each other, but Udayana did not like it, and hence Vatsa and Avanti went into battle, and finally Vatsa was defeated by Avanti. This story is written in the book known as Sopan Vasavadatta. Sopan Vasavadatta. The theme of this story is the wars that were fought between Pradyodha and Udayana because of the marriage between Pradyodha and Udayana's daughter Vasavadatta. And Sopan Vasavadatta was a famous drama. It is a famous drama. And Avanti was later annexed. Avanti was later annexed into Magadha. Avanti was later annexed into Magadha. Okay. Vatsa was defeated by Avanti and Avanti was later defeated by Magadha. And the ruler of Kosala was Prasenajit. These were the most important rulers of these dynasties. Okay, they were not the only rulers, but they were the most important rulers. Prasenajit was the most important ruler of Kosala. Kosala was also later annexed into Magadha. So this is how Magadha became the most prominent and powerful Mahajanapada in North India around 600 BC. Okay. The first dynasty that ruled Magadha was the Haryangas, right? And the rulers who had established Magadha were Brihadrada and Jarasandha. These kings, or they were also brothers, they were the people who had established Magadha or started Magadha. But the real rulers, the rulers who were considered as the real founders of Magadha were, but Bimbisara and his son Ajatashatru were considered as the real founders of Magadha. So these were the people who had established the Haryanga dynasty and started the rule over Magadha. But the later rulers named as Bimbisara and his son Ajatashatru are considered as the real founders of Magadha. The early capital of Magadha is Rajgir or Rajagriha, and the later capital was Padaliputra. The next topic that we are going to study in detail is about Magadha. So for the time being, we are just stopping it at this. Now we are going to study about the different republics that were existent in this period. During the time period from 650 BC to 325 BC, there were around 10 republics existed in India. Around 10 republics were there in existence in India around 650 BC to 325 BC. Among them, 4 were very important. We got to know about all these republics from ancient Buddhist and Jainist texts. There were 10 republics in existence at that time, but among those 10, 4 were important. The first one is Sakyas of Kapilavatsu. The second one is Mallas of Kushinagar. And the third one is Mallas of Pava. And the fourth one is Lichavis of Vaishali. Buddha or Gautama was a member of the Sakya clan. His father, Gautama Buddha's father, belonged to the Sakya clan. And he is a member of the Sakya tribe. His other name was Siddhartha. Buddha's other name was Siddhartha. So, Buddha belonged to the Sakyas of Kapilavatsu. Then Mallas had 2 branches, Mallas of Kushinagar and Pava. As we have already seen, Buddha had died at Kushinagar and Mahavira had died at Pava. The Lichavis of Vaishali, they were one of the most strongest republics in the history of time. The Lichavis of Vaishali were very war-loving people. They conducted many wars. They were victorious. Everyone were afraid of them. They were finally defeated by Ajatashatru, who was one of the most important kings in Haryanga dynasty. Okay, so these were the 4 prominent ancient republics during that time. From the study of Mahajanapadas, we came to know about a few things. The first one is, in ancient India, there were monarchies as well as republics. There were existence of republics in ancient India. That was our first inference from the study of Mahajanapadas. And from the second inference, or the second thing that we came to know is that even though there were monarchies, these monarchies were never dictators. They never acted like dictators. Meaning, even though there was a single king who can take all the decisions, he never imposed his wrong decisions on the people. He never acted like a dictator. Okay. And the third thing that we came to know is that From the Mahajanapadas, the early empires in India came into existence. That is, from the Magadha, the first empires in India came into existence. So from the Mahajanapadas, later new empires. Empires are the big kingdoms that spanned over a big portion, including a major portion of India, came into existence. Okay, so these are the importance of the studies that we had conducted about Mahajanapadas. Okay, Magadha ruled North India from around 600 BC till 570 AD. Okay, it was roughly around 1200 years. Okay, and the earlier dynasties that ruled Magadha were the Haryangas, Shishunagas and Nandas. During the time period of these dynasties, Magadha existed as a Mahajanapada. The earlier capital of Magadha was Rajagriha or Rajgir, and the later capital was Pataliputra. The first dynasty that ruled Magadha was the Haryangas. The founders of Haryangas were Brihadrata and Jarasandha. But the most prominent rulers of Magadha were Bimbisara, his son Ajatashatru, and his son Udayin. So in history there might be similar names. We have studied a ruler with the name Udayana. This is Udayin. And we have now studied Bimbisara. Later we will study another ruler with the name Bindusara. Udayana was the ruler of Vatsa, and Udayin is the ruler of Haryanga. Do not mix it up. Okay. So there is Bimbisara, his son Ajatashatru and his son Udayin. These were the most important and prominent rulers of Haryangas. Bimbisara and Ajatashatru are considered as the real founders of Magadha, because these are the rulers who had done so many battles and tried to expand the kingdom of Magadha. They had also made the kingdom stronger against attack from enemies. So these rulers were considered as the real founders of Magadha. And it was Ajatashatru who had done a long political campaign, a long warfare, and finally defeated the Lichavis of Vaishali. The Lichavis always tried to attack Magadha, and that attack was brought to an end by Ajatashatru. And another contribution of Ajatashatru is that he identified the importance of a small village, Pataligram. See, our Magadha is somewhat like, it is covered by mountains in all the sides, and there is only one entrance towards the ancient kingdom of Magadha. Later Magadha expanded, and it is a very fertile region. Magadha is a very fertile region, and they have so much agriculture. The land was prosperous. They have so much mineral deposits, so they have minerals also. So they were rich in that case also. They just had there is a small village here called Pataligrama. Pataligrama. Always always Lichavis from Vaishali attacked from the northeast like this. They came through the Pataligrama and tried to attack Magadha. Always their attack will be coming like this. And it was Ajatashatru who identified the importance of this small village Pataligrama. It is something like a gateway to Magadha. He identified the importance of this village and he fortified this village. Instead of protecting here, he fortified this village, meaning he constructed a fort around the village and protected this village, so that the attack of the Lichavis cannot directly enter Magadha. There is a kind of buffer zone here. There is a fortified place here. They cannot cross this place. Then if they cross Pataligrama only, they can enter Magadha. Since the Pataligrama is protected, they cannot get inside Pataligrama and they cannot cross it and reach Magadha. Hence, he made it strong. Who? Ajatashatru. It was Ajatashatru who identified the importance of this small village Pataligrama and fortified it against the attack of the Lichavis. And later it was Udayin who had laid the foundation of Pataliputra by developing Pataligrama. It was Udayana who had laid the foundation of Pataliputra by developing Patali Grama. And he was the person who had started the new capital Pataliputra. From his working later, Pataliputra came into existence as a capital. Okay. These are the main contributions of the important rulers of the Haryanka dynasty. One most important contribution of Ajatashatru is that he had conducted the first Buddhist council. This we will learn in detail in Buddhism. What is Buddhist council? These Buddhist councils are the meetings of the Buddhist sages after the death of Gautama Buddha. After Buddha died, all the Buddhist sages came together and had a meeting to protect Buddha's teachings, to make books out of them, to spread Buddhism. And the first such Buddhist meeting, first Buddhist council was conducted by Ajatashatru. There were 4 important Buddhist councils. We will be studying these 4 Buddhist councils later. The next dynasty that ruled Magadha was the Shishunagas. The historians gave name to the dynasty from the name of the founder itself. The founder of Shishunaga was Shishunaga. Shishunaga dynasty, the founder was Shishunaga. And his successor was, the person who succeeded him in ruling was Kalashoga. Kalashoga, or his other name is Kagavarman. Kagavarman. The importance of Kalashoga is that he conducted the second Buddhist council. He conducted the second Buddhist council. And he was defeated, and the next dynasty was established by the first Nanda ruler. King Kalashoga of the Shishunagas was defeated and killed by Mahapadmananda, who had established the Nanda dynasty. Mahapadmananda was the founder of the Nanda dynasty. He had killed Kalashoga and established the Nanda dynasty. The Nandas were a very prominent and rich dynasty, and Magadha at this period was also very rich. There was very prosperous agriculture. The king had very good agriculture, then the people had very good agriculture. Overall, the kingdom was thriving and it was very rich. And the rulers had tax collection. Even though the Nandas were rich, they wanted even more money. And they had oppressive tax collection. They collected such high taxes that the people who, even though they were rich, they found it very oppressive. And they became so rich. The kings and the kingdom became so rich. The wealth of the Nandas were so well known. The wealth of the Nandas were very famous throughout the country. Even in South India at that time, it was the Sangha period or the Sangam period. It was the Sangam period in South India, and the rulers in South India also knew about such a rich kingdom. And Sangam period in South India is a very famous period in South Indian history, where the important sages and important teachers and poets and everyone came together to have written works in the language. In which language? In the South Indian language of ancient Tamil. During Sangam period, the common language in South India was the ancient Tamil. And in the ancient Tamil, the poets came together and started writing literary works so that their spoken language can be made into written language. The grammar of the language can be codified, and the important stories and the important things that the gods have supposed to say could be written down. And that period, there is a famous text called Agananuru, written by Mamulanar. Agananuru was a Sangam text, meaning a text that was written during the Sangam period in South India. It was written by Mamulanar. And in that Sangam text, they have mentioned about the richness or the wealth of the Nandas. The South Indian author has written in his book Agananuru about the wealth of the rich Nanda kings. The Nanda rulers were so rich that even the entire kingdom knew about them. the Nandas and the kingdom became so rich, so filthy rich, that still they collected more tax and the tax system was so oppressive, the people finally got fed up. They started to revolt against the king, and the last Nanda ruler was Dhanananda. See, they even had wealth written on their name, Dhanananda. And the people revolted against the king under Chandragupta Maurya. The people were revolting against the king under the guidance of, under the generalship of Chandragupta Maurya. He was helped by Chanakya. And they had defeated and killed Dhanananda. And Chandragupta Maurya had established his rule over Magadha, and thus it was the beginning of the Mauryan Empire. In this event, Chandragupta Maurya was helped by his friend Chanakya, or famously known as, in this event, Chandragupta Maurya was helped by Chanakya, or his other name is Kaudilya, or his another name is Vishnugupta. He is famous for the book he had written, Ardhashastra. Ardhashastra. Chanakya had written, or Kaudilya had written, the Sanskrit book Ardhashastra, which is a book on how to do ruling. It is a book for the king to learn how to do ruling. Okay. So this is the end of Nanda and the beginning of Maurya, or the Mauryan Empire, which was the first empire that ruled India. Okay. So it was during the period of the Nandas and the period after that, that is the rule of the Mauryas, the first set of foreign invasions came to India. There were two foreign invasions, or foreign invasions from two countries, that is the Persian invasion and the Macedonian invasion. The Persian invasion was from the ancient Persian Empire from modern Iran region. Three sets of rulers had invaded India, and they belonged to the Persian invasions. The kings of the Persian invasion belonged to the Achaemenid Empire. The first ruler who had invaded India was Cyrus. The first Persian ruler, or the first ever ruler who had invaded India, was Cyrus. The next ruler who had invaded India from Persia was the Darius I. And the next ruler who had invaded India was the Darius I. One of his most famous commanders was Silas. Silas was sent on a naval expedition, meaning he was sent on a boat to find new places to conquer. Silas, the commander of Darius I, was sent on a naval expedition on river Indus to find and conquer new places in India. And once Cyrus came to India, most of the Indian kings accepted their defeat in front of them. Most of the foreign invasions that happens in India, or that comes to India, is through the northwestern part of India, and not through the north, and not through the northeast or through the east. So you know why? It is because there are a set of mountains going on like this. Here are the Hindu Kush mountains. Then there are the Himalayan mountains and the Purvanchal hills. The Himalayan mountains are very high mountains, which means their height is comparatively very high because they are young mountains. And since the height is very much more, or since they are very high, it is difficult to cross them. And the mountains are closely packed, and there are three sets of mountain ranges. And because of all these difficulties, people usually cannot cross through these mountains. Whereas the mountains here in the northwest, they are not that high because they are old mountains. They have weathered down and become shorter mountains. They are not tightly packed. There are so many passes, mountain passes through which people can enter. And hence, most of the foreign invasions that ever came to India came through the northwest. Also, since if this is India, Pakistan is here, then here is Iran region, and hence that way also they will come through this side. The people from Persia. So the people from Persia also came here, came through this portion. And if this is India, then there is our northwestern part, and this is Pakistan region, Pakistan, the Punjab region, and the Punjab in India. Okay, then if a foreign invasion is coming through northwest India, they first will be attacking this region, the Punjab and Sindh region in Pakistan. And most of the foreign invasions will be successful in this region, and they will successfully defeat the kings here and establish their rule there. If a king is establishing their rule in a place, first the king will come, then his with him the army will be coming, and they will be staying there. Then slowly all their family and the king's servants and other people from that king's kingdom will be coming and settling there. And in that region, people from a new culture, from a new place will be living, and they will be mixing with the people who were already living there, and there will be cultural exchange. There will be exchange between both the people in terms of their food, their clothing, their language, their art, their writing style, etc. They will even have communication on the basis of their medicines, the science and stories that they know. All those things, there will be cultural exchange. So we have to know almost all the foreign invasions came to India through northwest India, and most of them have settled there also in northwest India. And hence the northwest portion of India, including that of Pakistan region, have a lot of different cultural elements from different parts of the world. Not only that, these people will also marry the indigenous people there. Then there is also a mix of genetic pool, or the genes of the people will also mix up. Hence, such different genetic mix-up, such different cultures, such different languages, etc. have come to northwest India over a long period of time. Okay, just keep that in mind. And the last Persian ruler who came to India was Xerxes. Xerxes is important because he was the first ever ruler who had taken Indian soldiers into his army and taken them outside India to fight against another foreign empire. Okay, so Xerxes took Indian soldiers in his army. He had a Persian army. He took Indian soldiers into the Persian army. And as we know, the Persians always had war with the Greeks. And he took the Indian soldiers along with him to have war with the Greeks. Hence, Xerxes is the first king who had taken Indian soldiers outside India to fight against outside countries, or to fight against other countries. Okay, so these three people were the rulers of Persia who had invaded India. Next, the impact of Persian invasion. The Persian invasion had facilitated the Indo-Iranian conflict. It had improved the trade, or it had helped the trade between India and ancient Iran region. First influence was that. And the second influence was the cultural exchange between the people. And the main feature that was exchanged was the introduction of the Persian mode of writing, or the Kharosthi script in India. The Kharosthi script, which was the writing style of the Persians, was introduced in northwest India. In northwest India, the language spoken was Pali and Prakrit, but the script was different. Since the Persians came to India, their script also came with them, and we adopted their script and we used their Kharosthi script in northwest India. In India, the common man's language was either Pali or Prakrit, but the script that we had followed was the Brahmi script throughout India. But in northwest India, slowly But in northwest India, we slowly adopted the Kharosthi script instead of the Brahmi script. Even though the language was the same, the mode of writing became into Kharosthi script. And this Kharosthi script was later used by Ashoka. King Ashoka had made numerous inscriptions throughout the country in his kingdom. These inscriptions were messages given by the king to either the government officials or the people of his country, and they were inscribed on stones and kept in different places. Either inscribed on stones and kept in different places, or he had made pillars and inscribed his inscriptions there. And throughout India, he had written that in Pali and Prakrit using Brahmi script, but in northwest India, he had used the Kharoshthi script. We have seen Ashokan pillars. Ashokan pillars were initially monolithic pillars. Monolithic means they were made out of a single stone. These pillars had a basement and a main structure, and on top of that there was a design work that they had copied from Indian style. But the basic pillar is monolithic, meaning that it was made out of a single stone. This style Ashoka had taken from the Iranian architecture or the Persian architecture. The Ashokan monolithic pillars were influenced by or were influenced from the Persian architecture. Okay, we will study about the monolithic pillar, the structure of the monolithic pillar later. So the next impact of Persian invasion was Ashoka was inspired by the monolithic pillars of the Persians, and he had used that architecture here in India on a widespread basis. First made out of stone, later made out of metal. These are the main impacts of the Persian invasion. The last impact of the Persian invasion was that because of the Persian invasion, because of one invasion from northwest India, the next invasion, the region was well prepared. It was easy for the next king to invade India because of the earlier Persian invasion, and the next invasion was that of the invasion of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great came to India after defeating the Persians. Since he had defeated the Persians, it was easy for him to come into this region, defeating the earlier Persian kings of that region, and hence the Persian invasion had easily paved the way for the future invasion of Alexander the Great from Greek country Macedonia. These were the impact of the Persian invasion. The next invasion is from the Greek country Macedonia, and it is the invasion of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great Greek king. Okay. He was a very ambitious ruler. He came from a very small kingdom, Macedonia. He became the ruler of Macedonia after his father Philip had died. So in 334 BC, he had become the ruler of Macedonia, and his ambition was to conquer the world. He had a plan for that, and his plan was that first he will defeat the entire eastern part of the world. Then he will come back and go to the western part of the world, and hence the world will be his. For him, or at that period of time, the world was a flat surface. For him, the eastern end of the world was India, and they will come to the eastern and conquer everything, and come back and go to the western end and conquer, is what he thought. And for that, he had got out, defeating many kingdoms on his way. On his way going to India or the eastern end of the world, he had conquered the Mesopotamia. He had conquered the Persian kingdom. Almost all the bigger kingdoms were conquered by him, and people became so afraid of him. If they came to know that he is coming, they will accept the defeat without any fight. Okay, Alexander came to India around 327 BC. He had crossed the Hindu Kush mountains in 327 BC. Okay. And at that time, North India was ruled by so many smaller kings. The ruler of Abhisara, another ruler named as Ampi. Then there was King Porus. So many rulers were there, and most of them, like Ampi, the ruler of Abhisara, etc., they accepted defeat even before they fought with Alexander. When Alexander came, they accepted defeat. They accepted Alexander as their king, except for King Porus. King Porus did not want to give his kingdom to Alexander, and he stayed like that. And they went into war together. And what happened was that King Porus was defeated by Alexander. This is the story. Where did we get the story from? We got the story from the historians who had come along with Alexander, and they had written the documents about it, and we came to know about the story from him or from the Greek historians. So Porus was defeated by Alexander, but Alexander was impressed by Porus, the courage of Porus, and he gave back Porus his kingdom, is what they have written. That is the written facts that we have, and that is what we have to study also. But Alexander had defeated many other courageous kings, but he have never given back their kingdom. So we have to ask ourselves whether this is true or not. There were no historians at that time who were writing Indian history. Indians were very busy doing other things. So the historians who came with Alexander wrote their history. They will only write their history, giving good tribute to their king, right? We personally can't be sure that Alexander will be giving back Porus his kingdom, because Alexander never does that. Maybe Porus has defeated Alexander. There are even other things. The name of Porus is not actually Porus. His name is Purushottam, King Purushottam. Since the Greeks cannot pronounce that, they have made his name as King Porus. Similarly, the battle they had fought. Is known as Battle of Hydaspes. Battle of Hydaspes. The Battle of Hydaspes was fought in 326 BC between Alexander and King Porus. According to the historical documents that we have, King Porus was defeated, but Alexander returned his kingdom to King Porus. This is what we have to study for the exam. And is there a river called Porus? No, it was the Greek people who had given the name Hydaspes to the river Vidasta. Vidasta was the actual name of the river. Since the Greek people cannot pronounce the name, they pronounce it as Hydaspes. And which river is Vidasta? It is the ancient name of river Jhelum. It was the ancient name of river Jhelum. And on the banks of river Jhelum or Vidasta or Hydaspes, the battle was fought between Alexander and Porus. And the official result was that Alexander won the war. Okay. After the Battle of Hydaspes, Alexander further marched into India. From that region, he again went inside India. But till river Bears only he can come, because by that time his soldiers has told him that they wanted to go back. They can't fight anymore. Hence, Alexander had to retreat, go back. And on his way back, when reaching Mesopotamia, at that time Mesopotamia, the major city of Mesopotamia was Babylon. Okay. And hence Alexander and his army had to retreat, and in 323 BC, while going back at Babylon, Alexander died. The cause of Alexander's death is still unknown, but he died at Babylon in 323 BC. This was Alexander's invasion of India. The impact of Alexander's invasion. Since Alexander's invasion came, the Mauryan Empire, which was the leading empire in North India, thought that they should conquer and keep under control the rest of India, especially in Northwest India, so that no one from outside will be coming and attacking them. And this led to the unification of northern India by Mauryan Empire. The Mauryan kings decided to extend their rule to northwest and conquer those portions so that no one from outside will come. And hence the system of small independent kingdoms came to an end. This led to the political unification of northern India. Okay. The second impact of Alexander's invasion was that the contact between the India and Greek countries increased, so that the trade between both the countries also increased. The Indo-Greek trade contacts increased. This foreign invasion had led to the opening of new routes also overland. New routes from European countries to through Western Asia to India had been opened because of this invasion. And these are the impacts of Macedonian or the Greek invasion of Alexander the Great. And these two are the foreign invasions first that we have classified, and this happened during the period of Nandas and the Mauryas. And this is the end of this session. Okay, thank you.